Let's continue reviewing simulation exam number 1. Now, let's take a look at question 10. A sales associate works for Realty Inc. during the week, meaning Monday through Friday, employed by Realty Inc., and will also be hired by a developer to sell homes on commission during the weekends. So in this case, the associate would actually have two real estate employers at the same time. Now the question is, which of the following statements is correct? Here's what the book tells us about employers and license registration. Sales associates and broker associates are only allowed to work for one real estate employer at a time in Florida. That employer can either be a broker or a developer. So the rule is clear. Only one employer at a time in Florida. However, a licensee in Florida may also hold an active real estate license in another state. For example, you could have your Florida license and at the same time be licensed in Michigan. In that case, you could work for a broker in Florida and for a broker in Michigan. Both licenses can remain active simultaneously. So, what's the only scenario where this situation would be correct? If one of the employers is in Florida and the other is either in another state or in another country. But if both employers are in Florida, even if both of them agree to it, that is not allowed. Now let's review the options. Option B says, it's fine because the second job is only on weekends. That is incorrect. Option C says, this is allowed if one of the employers is a company located abroad. That is correct. In fact, it could also say in another state, and it would still be valid. So the correct answer here is C. Option D says, the sales associate must obtain a group license to work for both the broker and the developer. Remember, a group license, which we study at the end of Chapter 3, applies when a sales associate or broker associate works for a developer who has multiple projects. But a group license never allows someone to have two separate employers. Now let's move on to question 11. It says, Francisco is selling one of his properties and asks his daughter to help him by placing ads in the newspaper. So, let's pause here. Do you see anything wrong with this statement? Well, the key point is that she's not getting paid. And as long as she's not being compensated, there's nothing wrong. She can do a lot of things. She can sell it. She can show the property. She can place ads. She can answer the phone calls. As long as she doesn't get paid, she's not breaking any law. Now let's review the options. Option A says, Francisco can thank his daughter and give her a generous bonus. Well, thanking her is fine, but the part about a generous bonus is what makes this option incorrect. In the exam, they might not put money, but that's what bonus means, and that's the problem. Option B says, she can do it because advertising does not require a license. Guys, advertising does require a license. In fact, advertising is listed as one of the 8 real estate services. Although she can do it, but the key point to the right answer is that she is not getting paid. So this is not the answer. Option C says, she can do it because she's just helping her father, who doesn't have time. Clearly, that's not a valid reason either. Option D says, this is correct because she is not charging for performing these tasks. And that is the right answer. So remember, as long as there is no compensation involved, there's no violation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a classic question from the state exam. Question 12. This type of question usually involves 2 brokers and 2 sales associates, and it's all about understanding how the money flows, who pays whom. For this type of question, it is essential to make a quick sketch. Something like this. On one side, we have broker Brown. Brown has one of his sales associates, whose name is not mentioned, and that sales associate has a listing, a property for sale. On the other side, the question says, John is employed by broker Smith. So here we have broker Smith, and under him we have John, who finds the buyer. Now the question is, who pays John? The answer is, John is paid by his broker, Smith, but then who gives the money to Smith? That would be Brown, because Brown holds the listing. So Brown pays Smith, and Smith pays John. Wherever you see that exact flow of money described, that's the correct answer. And in this case, the correct option is D. Brown makes a payment to Smith, and Smith pays John. Do you see the logic? This is a different style of question. If you don't draw it out, it becomes confusing. So don't skip this step. Take the extra minute to make the sketch. because it could mean the difference between earning or losing that exam point. Question 13. What term is used to refer to the person who acts on behalf of another? The correct answer is attorney in fact. This is the person who has the authority to act in representation of someone else. Question 14. At what point can a person who has fulfilled all the requirements for a real estate sales associate license begin to work? The answer is immediately. Let's clarify this. The book says that once a candidate passes the state exam, the license is sent by email. That license becomes active as soon as the licensee registers with an employer, meaning a broker or a developer. So you can begin working immediately after passing the exam, as long as you have already notified the Florida Real Estate Commission about your employer. The key here is you must have an employer first, and that employer must be reported to the DBPR before you begin. Look at option D. It says you have 10 days to notify after starting work. That's incorrect. There is no 10-day grace period. You don't start working and then notify. You notify first and then you can start. That 10-day rule is only related to a change of employer, not when you first get licensed. So the key word to remember is you can start immediately once you've passed the exam and notified the DBPR of your employer. Question 15. What happens to the license of a sales associate or broker if they do not complete the education course before the expiration of their first license renewal? The answer is the license becomes null and void. That's right. If you fail to complete the post-license course before your very first renewal, you lose everything. The license is automatically void, as if you never had it. Now, this is different from what happens at the second renewal. If you miss that one, your license simply becomes involuntarily inactive, not null. Question 16. A person dies and leaves a personal representative in their will to handle the sale of certain properties. Does this person need a real estate license to do so? The answer is no. And here's the key word, will. If someone is appointed as a personal representative through a will, they are exempt from the license requirement. Option B says they don't need a license as long as they don't charge for it. That's false. Remember, we've already said if you're not charging, you don't need a license at all, or a will, or a judge. 17. The owner of a farm is going to sell his property, which has been subdivided into parcels zoned for single-family homes. In other words, the farmer is turning this into a development project. He plans to hire his nephew, who holds a real estate sales associate license, to help sell the lots. What should be done? Well, since the nephew is going to work for his uncle, he must be properly registered to work with the uncle as a developer. So the correct answer is B. The DBPR must be notified that the nephew will be working with the developer, his uncle. Option A says the farmer must first obtain a broker's license before being able to hire his nephew. That's false, because developers are not required to hold a broker's license. And options C and D are irrelevant. Here in question 18, we need to do the same as we did with the Broker Brown question. Make a quick diagram. The scenario says, Thomas is a broker who has a property for sale that was brought in by licensee Ted. So let's set it up. Sales associate Ted brings in the listing. On the other side, we have broker Alfred and his licensee employee John, who brings the buyer. Now, the question asks, which of the following statements is incorrect? Here's the key. Option A says, broker Thomas sends the agreed commission percentage directly to licensee John at closing. And that's the incorrect statement. Because remember, there can never be a cross payment between one broker and another broker's associate. The correct way it should work is Thomas pays Alfred, and then Alfred pays John. So whenever the exam asks you to find the incorrect option, look for a cross payment situation. That's the red flag. 19. The question says, a broker hires the services of an attorney to find buyers for some apartments the broker was selling. Right away, this is a problem. It's not allowed to hire an attorney to look for buyers because under Florida real estate law, being an attorney does not give you the right to practice real estate. An attorney must also obtain a real estate license if they want to perform real estate services. And if the attorney were to collect compensation, that would make it even worse. The situation continues. The attorney actually sends two clients who each end up buying a property. The Florida broker does not pay the commission he had promised the attorney. what is correct in this situation? Let's review the options. Option A says the attorney has the right to collect all the commissions owed according to the contract with the broker. That is not correct. Option B says the broker has violated Chapter 475 of Florida statutes by employing an attorney. And this is the correct answer. Option C says the attorney can sue the broker if the broker doesn't pay him. That's incorrect because the contract itself was unlawful. Option D says if the broker is satisfied with the attorney's performance, he should pay him, and there would be nothing illegal. That's also wrong. Paying him would still be illegal. So the correct answer is the broker violated Chapter 475 by hiring an attorney,